Oh, hello there. Yes, well, the long hot summer did indeed pass me by. Except, well, it wasn't that hot, really, was it, I suppose? And I'm not really quite sure how it could have passed me by, because I did actually go out in it and force it to interact with me on a number of occasions. Anyway, the older I get, September comes around and I just find myself having had a reasonably easy time, albeit some of it at work in the summer, that I just basically don't want to go back to work. Never mind your 4-day week, I want a 2-day week, ideally. I've reached that stage in my life I just don't want to work. Yeah? I mean, I love working with the kids I work with, but, yeah. Anyway, moving on from that. Yes, today, anyway, is about libertarianism and libertarians and their odd view of the world and the way that the word has been captured in a very nasty way and the way that people try and make it into a very political issue without any real nuance, let's say, or thought. So anyway, yeah, if you look at the history of libertarianism, it is originally very much tied with sort of anarchist left, anarcho, put a word after that, whichever way you want to put that, because it's all about maximising individual freedom, which of course we're all in favour of. I don't think there's anyone out there realistically, no matter what people might say about the left, that don't want to do that, okay? We're not actually authoritarian gits at all. You know, we kind of like the ability not to get shot by the security services, oddly. Yeah, so, however, in about the last 60, 70 years, particularly with right-wing economists like Hayek, it's tended to become hijacked by a very particular worldview, which tends to come from a position of privilege. You don't tend to meet poor libertarians. I mean, I'm saying in this part of the world, I mean, Americans are slightly different, but Americans are very different, let's face it. But you tend to meet these people who, because they were born into a reasonably comfortable background, sort of assume that the world should kind of fit around them. That as economic players they are free, and everybody is free and equally free. I'm as free as the king is, and Elon Musk is, and other people are, to be free. What it tends to do, however, is it tends to have a very one-dimensional view of what that kind of freedom means. I mean, perhaps the classic person to quote here is Malcolm X, who was fully aware that, you know, economic freedom, it sounds great, but you have to have money to do it. So I'm not a diner until you let me dine. Yeah, there is a plate in front of me, there's nothing on it, as he said in one of his famous later speeches. Yeah, if you're poor, you don't have economic freedom, and people just sort of like brush that aside as something that's not really important. No, it's vitally important. You don't have freedom if you're poor, because you're poor. Anyway, libertarians, as they are, because they do make up the majority of commentators that you'll see anywhere, including mainstream media. And most of the commentators on the media, in the media, BBC, ITV, Channel 4, you name it, will tend to come from that viewpoint to a greater or lesser extent, and it's enormously prevalent on your GB Newses and your Telegraph columnists. They all come from this view that basically the world should fit around them because they're very important. And woe betide you if you don't. Yes, I always think of people like that in Waitrose. I have a bugbear about people in Waitrose. I love Waitrose as a shop. Can't stand the customers. Anyway, leaving that aside, right, okay? So we come on to the nub of the matter, because one of the problems with having that sort of very, very comfortable worldview is it makes you very immune or blind, if I can use that particular phrase, to exactly what goes on. And you tend to develop a very two-dimensional view of the world, whereby, you know, people are just lazy. People who are poor are just lazy and stupid, right? It's just easier to think of the world like that. And if you have a particular economic viewpoint and a particular political viewpoint, you tend to end up championing some very odd causes, should we say, especially in the name of free speech, because obviously everyone's in favour of free speech. Yes, I'm in favour of free speech, actually. I don't think you'll find anyone that isn't. I mean, obviously it's always about my free speech, and various people out there don't really like other people having free speech, but that's another story we'll come on to. Yeah, so it's all about personal freedom and the ability to operate. which sounds great. But of course, in a real world, as adults, we have to accept that there are limits to these things. And I'm going to give you a classic example, okay, which is someone I've been following for, about 2 years now, right, okay? Bloke in Ireland, Enoch Burke. What a great name. Yep, it gets better. Anyway, you may not have heard of him. He's an Irish teacher who was guided by God, obviously, inevitable Christian teacher. Yeah, you can see where this is going. And he decided he didn't really like having to deal with any issues about things he didn't like trans. So anyway, having kicked up a bit of a fuss at his school, the school barred him. Basically told him not to come back. But he said, no, I'm a teacher. I'm anointed by God to be a teacher. So he kept going back. So they got a court order to stop him, which he ignored. Yeah, so he went to prison. Oh, victimhood. Oh. Anyway, he came out of prison quite recently and he decided to go back to the school because in God's view, he's still a teacher there. So anyway, you can see, all right, okay, now, various people, libertarian media types, have sort of championed this particular guy. And yet you have to say to yourself, for God's sake, why? Can you not see that, you might not like trans people, you might be a Toby Young of this world, again, someone we'll come back to, but for God's sake, can you not see that behaviour is just simply totally obnoxious? It's obnoxious. And it completely disregards anyone else's thoughts and feelings because Enoch is the most important child in the world. I'm sure his mum told him that a lot. Enoch, she lied, mate. But anyway, moving on from that, okay, you can see how obnoxious that is to people around you. You don't have, under the name of free speech, the right to dictate to others and their detriment around you. It's a really simple thing, I would have thought. But of course, those people that don't like trans people and see it as a political wedge issue are right behind him. There's, you can have a look at him on Twitter. Loads of the usual suspects will support him. Yeah? That's what we get. They are the same people, of course, who will argue that there are all those poor rioters. Sorry, not rioters. People that just waved a flag at a copper because they just came out to see what the noise was outside and they got arrested for it. Isn't it dreadful? And, and then you discover that actually, no, they tried to burn a hotel down with people in it. Yeah? There are limits to free speech and the limits have to be delineated by the law. That's the way that works, okay? If anyone can say and do effectively anything, then I'm sorry, but that isn't a libertarian paradise, that's a libertarian hell. Which brings us on, perhaps neatly, to Elon Musk. Now, Elon Musk is being championed by a lot of people on the right because he's standing up for free speech. And they're completely ignoring, because it's convenient that Elon Musk has decided that, because as an autistic bloke, realistically, he doesent know how to get on with people. So he's simply decided to throw in his lot with whatever group of particularly nasty racists and crypto-fascists he wants. He is bankrolling to a certain extent, Trump's re-election campaign. Now, you might argue he's entitled to do that as a private citizen. Okay, but he's also in charge of Twitter. And as such, I would argue, has a responsibility overall not to bend the rules around that, which patently he does. Yeah, he patently does. He decides who's on Twitter. He has recently decided to flood the site with an awful lot of very, very nasty racists in the name of free speech. Okay, fine. But if you're going to do that, then surely alternate voices should be heard. But no, he doesn't do that. But surely you might argue, well, it's awful that Twitter's going to be stopped in Brazil. Well, is it, though? Look at Brazil, right? Okay, they've got a centrist left government. Okay, they are lefter than our Labour Party, but there again, almost anywhere in the world is in terms of left-wing governments who have decided, their courts have decided, that there are issues in and around Twitter. Now, didn't we have Brexit, a huge libertarian victory that was, in order to decide that we should make our own minds up about things? And yet here is an individual, very much the important individual, and not a sport 8-year-old at all, who's Elon Musk, saying that no. What he wants is most important. And he's going to ignore countries' elected governments and their courts and just do whatever he wants. So he's above the law. And again, various libertarians, the usual suspects, you know who they are, I don't even need to say their names, are cheering him on. Oh, it's great because he's having a go at the lefties. Okay, then that's fine. If you want to live in a world where individuals can break the law and ignore the democratic wish of a hell of a lot of people, there's a hell of a lot of people in Brazil, after all, don't forget, it's a big country, I know a lot of it's forest, but there's a hell of a lot of people in Brazil, and just ignore them, then you are on a very, very dangerous and slippery slope in terms of what other things you're going to support, which neatly, of course, does fit in with so many of our glorious commentariats, because that's exactly the world they do want to live in. So long as Elon Musk and other people are doing what they want, they will cheer them on. Yeah? And we end up, of course, with, again, our glorious free speech merchants like Toby Young and the Free Speech Union. Oh, isn't it great what they're doing? No. Little task for you, okay? Just have a look up at the Free Speech Union and Julian Assange. You can do a web search. First answer. Nothing on their website about Julian Assange at all. Now, when he was released, they did put out a thing on Twitter, briefly, announcing it. But they are not free speech advocates at all, realistically. They are simply advocating for a particularly nasty libertarian view of the world, whereby if you don't like trans people and you're some nutter Christian, they'll give you a lot of time. If you're a trade unionist who's whistleblowing appalling practices and dangerous practices at work, oh, I'm sorry, but we're not doing that for you. Anyway, a little bit rambly, but I thought that was worthwhile saying. I do get hacked off with these people that seem to think that it's fine to invest an awful lot of power in individuals, and so long as you agree that they're kicking the right people, it's okay. I don't know what type of economic or political view you'd call that, but I think it's probably just being a git, isn't it? Yeah? There is no moral superiority there whatsoever, I'm afraid. Anyway, do have a beautiful Sunday. Enjoy the greyish weather we're going to have probably. And enjoy Sunday probably.